All right, man, let's talk. You ever see a woman go full detective mode over a guy she met, like, twice? She's pulling tarot cards, calling her best friend, like she's reporting from the front lines, scrolling his Instagram, like she works for the FBI, analyzing every emoji in his last text like it's encrypted military intel. And the wild part? She doesn't even know him like that. He's not her boyfriend. He hasn't made any promises. They haven't even gotten to the "what are we" conversation. But somehow, she's spiraling. Now, if you've ever been that guy, the one she's spiraling over, you probably didn't even do much. Maybe you were just normal, calm, minding your business. Which, ironically, is exactly what makes it happen. And if you weren't that guy, well, you've probably tried harder than him, texted more, said all the right things, and somehow got left on read while she's obsessing over Mr. Bare Minimum Energy. Feels unfair, right? Here's what you need to know. Women don't spiral over what's clear. They spiral over what's open-ended. It's not about how much you said. It's about what her nervous system had to fill in for itself. Mystery, ambiguity, power dynamics, emotional leadership. Those are the real currencies of attraction, not just attention. But let's break this down like grown men, not dudes playing dating games. Because this isn't about manipulating anyone. It's about understanding the psychology behind the spiral, and why it happens more often over the guy who barely tried than the one who was perfect on paper. We'll talk dopamine, neuroassociation, trauma bonding, intermittent reinforcement. We'll bring in a little Carl Jung, a little evolutionary psychology, maybe even some pop culture receipts. But let me say this up front. The reason she spirals isn't because you're so amazing. It's because something about you activated a pattern she can't stop chasing. And half the time it's not even about you. It's about how she feels about herself in proximity to you. Now, if that sounds complicated, it is. But that's why we're here. No TikTok hot takes, no alpha male roleplay. Just one man talking to another by the fire, breaking down the kind of stuff you're not supposed to talk about at brunch. So pour a drink, lean back, and let's get into it. Why do some women spiral over a man they barely know, while others couldn't care less, even if you gave them the world? Let me show you exactly how it works, and how to recognize the moment it starts. Stay with me. This one's gonna hit different. So here's the part that most men don't understand, because it doesn't follow logic. You could be doing everything right. You're consistent. You communicate. You give her attention. You show her respect. You even asked her how her day was, remembered her dog's name, and picked the spot she said she liked. And then you watch her spiral over a guy who forgot her birthday and her name the morning after. Now, if you've ever asked yourself, why do women always go for the ones who treat them like an afterthought? You're not crazy, but you are missing a key piece of the puzzle, because this isn't about how much she likes a guy. It's about how deeply he disorients her. You ever hear of a concept called intermittent reinforcement? And in behavioral psychology, it's the most powerful way to condition attachment. It's when a subject, in this case a human, receives a reward at random intervals, not predictably. So the brain becomes obsessed with chasing the high. Not because the high is that good, but because the uncertainty makes the reward feel more valuable. It's the same psychology behind slot machines. Same reason casinos don't let you see clocks. Same reason Tinder works. Now take that same mechanism and throw it into modern dating. You've got guys who say just enough to spark a fire but not enough to keep her warm. Guys who flirt with intensity, then disappear without explanation. Guys who seem grounded, mysterious, emotionally safe, until they're not. And what happens? The woman's nervous system kicks into survival mode. She starts overanalyzing, replaying the texts, rechecking the last scene, trying to decode what he meant when he sent lol instead of ha. But here's the kicker. Most of the time the guy didn't even do it intentionally. He's just emotionally unavailable by accident. Maybe he's avoidant. Maybe he's busy. Maybe he's just not that into her. But that emotional inconsistency, that unpredictability, that little hit of dopamine followed by confusion, it keeps her coming back, even if she knows she shouldn't. Because now it's not about connection, it's about closure and control. It becomes a psychological tug-of-war. Why can't I stop thinking about someone who barely gave me anything? How do I win him over and prove I'm worth choosing? You see how quickly it goes from romantic curiosity to emotional survival? This is why some women spiral. Not because you're perfect, not because you played it cool, but because something about your presence activated a loop in her brain, and she's chasing the exit. Now pause. This isn't about blaming women. It's not about mocking emotions or pretending men don't spiral too, because trust me, we do. But if you're a man trying to understand why this happens, or how you might be unintentionally creating this dynamic, you've got to stop thinking in terms of good guy versus bad guy, and start thinking in terms of emotional experience. How does she feel when she's not around you? Does your absence create silence or obsession? Because when a woman starts spiraling, it's usually not about the moment you were with her. It's about what you left unspoken, what you didn't explain, what she had to fill in with her own anxious imagination. And that's where things get dangerous for both of you. Because now she's responding to a version of you she built in her head, not the actual man sitting in front of her. But you become a puzzle she has to solve, a feeling she needs to win. And once she's locked into that spiral, logic's gone, self-respect gets blurry, and you, the guy who barely said 3 things, somehow live rent-free in her head for weeks. We've all seen it. The guy she barely knows becomes the guy she can't stop thinking about, and it's not because he's better. It's because her nervous system thinks he's a threat to resolve. All right, here's the part that really messes with your head. A woman doesn't spiral over the guy she understands. She spirals over the guy she can't predict. You know what's hilarious? Most of us men think we need to impress her with effort, like there's some point system. Text her first, tell her she's beautiful, flash 5, plan the date, plat 3. Be consistent, jackpot. But her brain isn't playing that game. It's playing survival chess. See Evolutionary Psychology 101, and this goes all the way back to tribal days. Women evolved to be hyper-attuned to social cues, emotional patterns, and hidden intentions. Because back then, if she chose the wrong mate, a guy who flaked, lied, or couldn't protect her, the consequences weren't just heartbreak. It was death, abandonment, exile from the tribe. So her nervous system adapted. She became biologically wired to notice microsignals, to read tone shifts, to pick up when something feels off. Fast forward a few thousand years. Now you send one dry lol instead of lemao, and she's like, he hates me. I knew it. He's losing interest. Let me check his story again. She's not crazy. She's just over-calibrated to potential threat. And if you, consciously or not, give her just enough connection to get hooked, but not enough certainty to feel secure, her system goes haywire. That's the spiral. It's not about your car. It's not your muscles. It's not your bank account. It's the emotional imprint you leave behind. And here's where it gets even more twisted. The less she knows about you, the more her imagination fills in the blanks. You become a psychological canvas. She projects what she wants to see. Or worse, what she's afraid to see. You ever notice how she'll describe a guy she barely knows like he's some dark, mysterious genius? Meanwhile, he's at home eating cereal at 3 a.m. watching anime in his underwear. But in her head, he's brooding. He's deep. He's probably journaling about his trauma while sipping whiskey and staring into a candle. Nah, bro. That's just your average dude who's really good at saying less. But because he left space, her nervous system built a narrative. And here's a wild stat to back it up. According to a study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, people actually remember ambiguous personalities more intensely than clearly defined ones, because their brain keeps working to solve the unknown. That's what you become. Not a person, a puzzle. Not a conversation, a cliffhanger. And the moment a woman starts mentally trying to solve you, instead of just getting to know you, she's no longer attracted. She's invested. But wait, there's more. Let's add one more ingredient to this psychological soup. Emotional familiarity. Because a woman's spiral often isn't about you, per se. It's about what you remind her of. If she grew up with chaos, inconsistency, or emotional unpredictability, guess what feels weirdly comfortable? A man who's hot and cold. Who gives her highs, and then disappears. Who keeps her chasing closeness, but never fully lets her in. That's not chemistry. That's trauma bonding dressed in cologne. And here's the mind bender. The more emotionally unavailable you are, the more it mirrors something unresolved in her past. And because her nervous system recognizes the pattern, it mistakes it for importance. Not "this feels good," but "this feels familiar. I must figure it out." Now you see why the spiral happens? It's a storm of mystery, dopamine, emotional confusion, and psychological projection. And it's not about you being special. It's about the psychological experience she had in your presence. You didn't say much. You didn't reveal too much. You weren't rude, but you weren't easily read either. You left space. You created ambiguity. And her nervous system did the rest. So now she's spiraling, not because of what you did, but because of what her mind still hasn't resolved. And you're just sitting there drinking your coffee, wondering why she's still watching your stories like they're Morse code. All right, let's flip the script. Because up until now, this probably sounded like women are just chaotic beings with overactive imaginations. But that's not the truth. Not even close. Here's what you need to understand. The fact that a woman can spiral over a man she barely knows, that's not a glitch in her emotional software. It's a feature. See, women aren't reacting to you, the man. They're reacting to the meaning their brain has assigned to the emotional experience you triggered. It's a difference most men miss. And that misunderstanding, that misalignment, is where relationships die before they even begin. Let's go deeper. Most men are trained by society, school, movies, you name it, to think in direct lines. Input, output, action, result. You say what you want, you pursue it logically, and you expect others to do the same. But women? They don't navigate relationships on straight roads. They live in the world of emotional signals, subtle cues, unsaid meaning. And when a man stirs just enough emotion to feel like a possibility, but not enough stability to be predictable, he becomes magnetic. But here's the part no one tells you. That same spiral that feels like obsession, it can quickly turn into resentment. Because once the fog lifts, once she realizes she's been mentally investing in a fantasy version of you, she either blames herself or she blames you. You ever have a woman go from texting you like you're her soulmate to blocking you with the force of 10 ancient gods? That's not "she's crazy." That's what happens when someone realizes they gave too much power to a person who gave them very little clarity. So here's the real power move. Don't just be the spark, be the fire. Any guy can trigger a spiral with a little mystery and some accidental ambiguity, but very few men can create depth, emotional charge, and emotional safety. You want to really flip the dynamic? Start being the man who knows he's a mystery, but chooses to be clear anyway. That's when respect enters the chat. Because now you're not just attractive, you're anchored. And get this. Carl Jung talked about the idea that we're all walking around projecting our unconscious minds onto other people. When a woman spirals over you, it's often her unconscious shadow trying to integrate something. You might represent freedom, or danger, or a version of love she's always wanted but never had. The mistake most men make? They try to live up to the fantasy, or worse, manipulate it. But if you try to become her projection, you'll lose yourself. If you try to control her spiral, you'll lose her respect. So what's the move? Let her feel what she feels without trying to manage it. You're not her therapist. You're not her savior. And you're definitely not her dopamine slot machine. You're a man with a life, direction, and emotional clarity. You're okay with being misunderstood. And that's powerful. Because here's the thing. A woman doesn't respect the man who bends for her emotions. She respects the man who holds his frame when her emotions bend around him. Not out of coldness, not out of superiority, but out of grounded presence. You're not here to chase her approval. You're here to offer your reality and let her decide if she wants to meet you there. It's not about withholding love, it's about not performing for it. The moment you stop needing to be the guy who makes her spiral is the moment she starts wondering why you're not chasing her back. Because now you're the question mark. You're the centered, emotionally secure man who doesn't need to be chased or chased after. You're just there, stable, present, with or without her spin cycle. All right, let's put this into practice. We've broken down the spiral, the emotional roulette wheel, the projection, the mystery. Now let's talk about how to operate in a way where you still spark attraction, but you don't become her latest emotional addiction. And more importantly, you maintain your own damn peace. Because let's be honest, having a woman spiral over you can feel like a power trip for a while, but it becomes a headache if you don't know what to do with that power. So here's the strategy. You don't trigger the spiral. You create the kind of presence that forces her nervous system to calibrate to you. Let's break it down. 1. Stop feeding the dopamine loop. This one's hard because it feels good to be desired. But if your attention is random, inconsistent, and emotionally charged, congratulations, you just became her favorite brain chemical cocktail. And that's not attraction, that's addiction. According to Dr. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist, romantic attraction activates the same brain regions as cocaine. Let that sink in. So when you drop charming messages at midnight, then ghost her for a day, then comment on her story, then disappear again, her brain doesn't think, he's mysterious. It thinks, I need to solve this. Boom, spiral activated. So what's the move? Consistency over chaos. Not boring, predictable energy, but intentional energy. You give what you mean. You pull back when you mean to pull back. No games, no accidental breadcrumbs. Because when your behavior is clear, her nervous system relaxes, and paradoxically, that makes you more powerful. 2. Mirror her emotional investment. Not her words. Here's where a lot of guys get played, and not because women are evil masterminds. You ask her what she wants, and she says, I want someone who texts me good morning every day. I love when a guy plans the whole date. I want deep connection. And then what do? You become that guy overnight. You text her every morning, plan dates, send playlists, go full rom-com, and suddenly she's dry, distant, confused. Why? Because you listened to her words but ignored her nervous system. You didn't let her earn that energy. You gave it all up front without knowing if she was ready to receive it. So instead, match her investment, mirror her pace, not out of coldness, but out of respect for your energy. If she's investing 40% and you're at 90%, that's not romantic, that's off balance. Let her earn your depth the same way you're earning hers. 3. Replace reaction with direction. The man who causes spirals doesn't just exist. He has direction, intention, presence. You ever notice how she spirals more over the guy who seems busy, even if he's not actually doing much? That's because movement purpose is inherently attractive. A man who has a plan doesn't need her to fill a void. A man with a mission doesn't chase emotional scraps. When she texts, you don't reply immediately out of reflex. You respond when you're available, with intention. When she pulls back, you don't panic. You don't ask what's wrong every 5 minutes. You observe. You adjust. You hold your emotional line. And when she feels that grounded energy, not defensive, not performative, just clear, it shifts the power. You're not her emotional roller coaster. You're the track. 4. Stop performing for her imagination. And this one's subtle, but huge. If you sense that she's spiraling, obsessed with you, texting like crazy, overthinking your ego might want to keep performing, you try to be more mysterious. You try to stay cool. You try to keep her hooked. But that's not power. That's dependence on her reaction. Instead, show up real, show up clear, show up centered. Let her spiral or not. Let her come or go. But you're not moved by chaos. You're not chasing attention. You're anchored in who you are with or without the chase. And that's what really breaks the pattern. Because now she can't spiral over you. She has to meet you. Alright, let's close this strategy section with the stuff that actually matters. The deeper shifts most guys never hear, especially if all they're watching are TikToks from guys in fitted caps shouting high value into their car camera. Let's talk about emotional anchoring, because that's what this spiral is really about. It's not about looks, it's not even about confidence. It's about emotional gravity. The man becomes the center of her storm, not because he asks to be, but because she can feel that nothing she does throws him off. And here's the secret. You can only become her emotional anchor when you've already become your own. Let's break that down with some real-world scenarios and show how to actually move through them like a man with gravity. Scenario 1. She's spiraling. You feel it. She's over-texting, over-attaching. Most guys either love bomb back because, let's face it, it feels good, or panic and pull away hard. Ghost, ignore, disappear. Neither move is grounded. Here's the play instead. You respond from neutrality. Not cold, not overly warm, just present. When you're grounded, her spiral starts to unwind. Because now she's not reacting to more chaos. She's responding to consistency. The psychologist Dan Siegel talks about this in the context of emotional regulation. When one person is dysregulated and the other remains emotionally stable, the stable one pulls the other into coherence. You don't get pulled into her spiral. She gets pulled into your stillness. That's masculine energy. That's gravity. Scenario 2. She starts pulling back after spiraling. Ah yes, the classic intense 1 week, cold the next. This is where a lot of guys flip. They go from chill to desperate real fast. They start chasing, asking, is everything okay? Trying to get the spark back, texting more, double texting. Here's what to remember. Her spiral was about her, not about you. Her coldness is also about her, not about you. The moment you make either one your responsibility, you lose polarity. So instead, you mirror the distance, you honor the silence. You stay open, but you don't fill the gap. That space, that's where her respect is reborn. Because now you're not seeking closeness, you're standing in truth. And truth always recalibrates attraction. Scenario 3. You sense she's spiraling for the wrong reasons. Let's say she's obsessed with a version of you that doesn't exist. She's projecting. You're her ideal. The hot, brooding, mysterious guy who probably writes poetry and doesn't eat carbs. You've said like 30 words to her, and she's imagining your wedding. Here's the dangerous temptation. You stay silent to protect the fantasy. You let her believe you're more than you are, because it's flattering, or maybe even convenient. But if you let her fall for the version of you that's just mystery and ambiguity, you're setting up a collapse. The longer she stays in the spiral without grounding, the more violent the drop will be when reality hits. So instead, you communicate just enough to stay real. Hey, just so you know, I move slow. I'm still figuring things out. I like where this is going, but I don't want to move faster than what's real. Boom. Clean boundary. No arrogance. No need to prove anything. Now her spiral either transforms into genuine connection, or it burns out on its own. Either way, you stay grounded. Last point. You are not the drug. You are the antidote. A woman will spiral when her body is reacting to patterns, projections, or pain. But what heals the spiral isn't mystery. It's masculine integrity. You flirt, sure. You tease, absolutely. You stay magnetic. But you don't need to manufacture addiction. You're not here to win her attention. You're here to offer your clarity and see who can meet you in it. You're not the roller coaster. You're the damn seatbelt. And that's what makes you different from 99% of the guys she's dealt with. Not because you're louder, or more mysterious, or more unavailable, but because you're undisturbed. Her chaos doesn't shake you. Her silence doesn't shrink you. Her spiral doesn't define you. You're already whole. Let's wrap this up around the fire. Because now you know what most men never even stop to question. You've probably been taught to focus on attraction as a game. Tactics, lines, rules, or worse, you've been taught to prove yourself worthy of her spiral. Make her obsessed. Be the guy who makes her chase. Use her attachment style against her. You know what that really is? Emotional insecurity. Wearing cologne. Let me give it to you straight. If a woman spirals over you, and you need that spiral to feel powerful, you've already lost. Because that means her reaction is what gives you value. That's not power. That's dependency in a leather jacket. The real power? It's not needing her spiral at all. You don't need to be her obsession. You don't need to be the guy she overthinks about. You don't need to be mystery wrapped in testosterone. Because when you know who you are, deeply, clearly, unapologetically, her spiral doesn't move you. You observe it, you understand it, and then you decide how you want to move. That's polarity. That's leadership. That's freedom. Let's take it even deeper. The part of you that used to chase being that guy, the one who wanted to be unforgettable, he was scared. Scared of being overlooked. Scared of being rejected. Scared of being nothing special. But here's the truth. You don't have to be unforgettable to be powerful. You just have to be fully you in every moment. And that version of you, he doesn't spiral. He doesn't perform. He doesn't compete with the imaginary version of himself she created in her head. He just lives fully, groundedly, intentionally. He makes decisions from clarity, not anxiety. He chooses his energy, his boundaries, his values, and doesn't apologize for them. And ironically, that's what makes her spiral, because she's not reacting to your mystery. She's reacting to your wholeness. You're not a puzzle she has to solve. You're the man she either meets or doesn't. So let this be the shift. You don't play the game anymore. You don't chase emotional validation. You don't lose sleep over mixed signals or spirals or what-ifs. Instead, you hold your line. You build your peace. You honor your own nervous system, the same way you used to obsess over hers. And when you live like that, you become untouchable. Not because you're cold, not because you're a stone wall, but because your inner world is stronger than her emotional weather. And when she sees that, she either spirals, grounds, or walks away. Either way, you stay centered. Final thing I'll say before we throw more wood on this fire. You don't need every woman to spiral over you. You just need one woman who respects your stillness, because she recognizes it in herself. That's the real flex. Not being chased, not being desired, but being mirrored by someone who doesn't throw chaos at your calm. So stop chasing spirals. Start choosing peace. Start honoring truth. Start moving from power, not performance. Because you don't need to be her drug. You're already the antidote. And if this hit home, hit subscribe. I don't do gimmicks. I just break down the things no one says out loud. And if you're still sitting with this later tonight, remember this. A woman might spiral over a man she barely knows, but she stays for the man who deeply knows himself. Keep building that man. You're closer than you think.